It is the first week or first Monday of the month, so we are doing a path series today. And this week or this month, we're going to look at the Feri tradition. Now, I just want to make a note to anybody who is watching this who may be initiated into the Feri tradition. This is information I've gathered from books, websites, etc., over the years. So if anything does appear to be incorrect, please let me know. Alright, but first, let's just do a quick advert thingy. Join me over on Patreon, where you will find all of my books, services, and courses in the shop, blog posts, and the various tiers which you can explore. You can get magical training in the Temple of the Horned Serpent First Degree, and joining as a free member gets you started with that, or explore the Magical Journal and the Egregore Project. Hope to see you there. Okay, so the Feri tradition, often described as a form of ecstatic witchcraft, is a distinct spiritual path within the broader framework of modern paganism. It emerged in the mid-20th century primarily through the teachings of Victor and Cora Anderson. Feri is known for its emphasis on personal empowerment, sexual mysticism, and direct experiences of the divine. Unlike more structured and widely recognized traditions such as Wicca, Feri remains relatively obscure and esoteric, often shrouded in secrecy and selective transmission. However, its unique blend of ancient wisdom and shamanic practices and modern interpretations of magic has attracted a dedicated following, making it a significant but understudied component of the neo-pagan movement. So the Feri tradition is deeply rooted in pre-Christian and indigenous spiritual practices, drawing on a wide range of influences that predate the rise of monotheistic religions. These ancient traditions, often characterized by animism, shamanism, and polytheism, provided a rich spiritual landscape from which Feri emerged. Central to these early spiritual practices was the belief in a world alive with spirits, deities, and other entities that could be interacted with through ritual and magic. One of the key influences on the Feri tradition is the shamanic practices of indigenous peoples, particularly those of the Americas and the Pacific Northwest, where Victor Anderson, one of the tradition founders, probably the main one, obviously was said to have spent time. Shamanism, with its emphasis on direct communion with the spirit world, journeying and healing, is reflected in Feri's focus on ecstatic experiences and personal gnosis. The concept of the three souls, a central tenet of Feri, echoes shamanic ideas of the human soul as a complex, multifaceted entity that interacts with the spirit world in different ways. Another significant influence is the pre-Christian paganism of Europe, particularly the Celtic and Feri traditions. The worship of nature, the veneration of ancestors, and the belief in a pantheon of deities and spirits are all elements that have been integrated into Feri. The concept of the Feri or Fae beings, which are central to Feri's cosmology, can be traced back to the Celtic belief in the otherworld, a realm inhabited by beings who exist alongside yet separate from the human world. These beings are not merely symbolic, but are seen as real autonomous entities that can be encountered through ritual and magic. Shamanism plays a crucial role in the development of the Feri tradition, particularly in its emphasis on direct personal experiences of the divine. Unlike more formalized religious practices that rely on intermediaries or established liturgies, shamanism encourages individual engagement with the spiritual realms through altered states of consciousness, often achieved through drumming, chanting, fasting, or the use of entheogens. In Feri, the pursuit of ecstatic states is a fundamental aspect of spiritual practice, Ecstasy in this context refers to a state of being that transcends ordinary consciousness, allowing the practitioner to experience the divine directly. This is often achieved through techniques such as trance, meditation, dance, and ritual, all of which are designed to break down the barriers between the physical and the spiritual worlds. The goal is not merely to experience these states for their own sake, but to gain insight, power, and healing from the interactions with the spirits and deities encountered in these altered states. The emphasis on ecstatic practices also reflects Feri's commitment to personal gnosis, knowledge that is gained through direct personal experience rather than through books or teachings from others. This emphasis on individual experience over dogma is one of the factors that sets Feri apart from some of the other neo-pagan traditions, which may place more emphasis on structured rituals or coven-based practices. Victor and Cora Anderson are widely recognized as the primary founders and transmitters of the Feri tradition. Victor Anderson, 1917 to 2001, often referred to as the Grand Master of Feri, claimed to have been initiated into a Hawaiian witchcraft tradition as a young boy. He later blended these teachings with other influences, including African, Native American, and Celtic spiritualities, to create what would eventually become known as the Feri tradition. Victor's teachings were deeply influenced by his mystical experiences and his belief in the reality of the spirit world. He was known for his powerful magical presence and his ability to teach through poetry, story, and direct transmission of energy, a method known as blooded or hedge crossing in Feri terminology. Victor's teachings emphasize the importance of the black heart of innocence, a concept that represents the primal, untamed aspect of the human soul, which is in direct communion with the divine. Cora Anderson, 1915 to 2008, Victor's wife, was also instrumental in shaping Feri tradition. She brought her own spiritual insights and practices to the tradition, particularly her knowledge of Appalachian folk magic, herbalism, and the Feri faith. Together, Victor and Cora created a body of teachings that combined elements of mysticism, magic, and ancestral wisdom, forming the foundation of what is now known as Feri. The Andersons' influence extended beyond their immediate circle of students. Through their writings, particularly Victor's poetry and Cora's book 50 Years in the Feri Tradition, they reached a wider audience and helped to establish Feri as a recognized spiritual path within the broader neo-pagan movement. However, the Andersons also maintained a degree of secrecy around certain aspects of the tradition, insisting that some teachings could only be transmitted orally and through direct initiation. The mid-20th century was a time of significant change and development for the Feri tradition. As the counterculture movement of the 1960s and 1970s brought a renewed interest in alternative spirituality, Feri began to attract a broader following. This period saw the emergence of several prominent students of the Andersons who went on to become influential teachers and leaders within the tradition. One of the key developments during this time was the formalization of Feri as a distinct spiritual tradition. While Victor and Cora Anderson were careful to maintain the esoteric nature of Feri, their students began to systematize the teachings, creating a more structured curriculum for those seeking initiation. This included the development of specific rituals, teachings on the Feri pantheon, and the codification of the tradition's core beliefs, such as the three souls doctrine and the concept of the peacock angel. The 1970s and 1980s also saw the spread of Feri beyond its original base in California. As more people became interested in witchcraft and neo-paganism, Feri teachers began to establish covens and study groups in other parts of the United States and even internationally. This expansion was facilitated by the publication of books and articles by Feri practitioners, as well as by the growing interest in Victor Anderson's poetry and magical teachings. However, this period of growth also brought challenges. As the tradition expanded, differences in interpretation and practice began to emerge, leading to the development of different lineages within Feri. Some of these lineages remain closely aligned with the Andersons' original teachings, while others incorporated new elements or emphasized different aspects of the tradition. This diversity within Feri has led to a rich and varied tradition, but it has also raised questions about what constitutes authentic Feri practice or authentic Feri practice. Despite these challenges, the Feri tradition continues to evolve throughout the late 20th century, adapting to the changing spiritual landscape while maintaining its core principles. By the end of the century, Feri had established itself as a recognized and respected tradition within the broader neo-pagan movement, known for its emphasis on personal empowerment, ecstatic experience, and deep connection with the divine. At the heart of the Feri tradition is its distinctive pantheon, which includes a diverse array of deities, spirits, and archetypal forces. Unlike more structured traditions that adhere to a fixed pantheon, Feri allows for a more fluid and personal relationship with the divine. Central to this pantheon are the divine twins, often referred to as the divine lovers or the holy twins. These figures represent the duality and unity of creation, embodying the principles of balance, harmony, and the dynamic interplay between opposites. The divine twins are often associated with the concepts of light and dark, male and female, and life and death. They are not merely symbolic representations, but are believed to be living, dynamic forces that can be experienced and interacted with in ritual and meditation. The twins also embody the principle of androgyny, reflecting the Feri tradition's belief in the fluidity of gender and the integration of masculine and feminine energies within each individual. In addition to the divine twins, the Feri pantheon includes deities and spirits from various cultural and mythological traditions. The most prominent among these is the peacock angel, also known as Melek Daus. The peacock angel is a complex figure, representing both the highest aspect of divinity and the raw primal power of creation. In Feri, the peacock angel is revered as a symbol of beauty, wisdom, and spiritual sovereignty, embodying the idea that each individual is a manifestation of divine power. Other important figures in the Feri pantheon include the star goddess, who is often seen as the source of all creation, and various nature spirits, ancestors, and fairy beings. These entities are not worshipped in a conventional sense, but are honored as part of the interconnected web of life that Feri practitioners seek to engage with through their spiritual practices. One of the most distinctive aspects of the Feri tradition is its emphasis on sexual mysticism. In Feri, sexuality is not merely a physical or biological act, but is seen as a profound spiritual experience that can lead to deep insights and connections with the divine. This belief is rooted in the idea that the creative and generative power of the universe is inherently sexual, and that by engaging with this energy, practitioners can align themselves with the forces of creation and transformation. Central to Feri's sexual mysticism is a concept of the sacred marriage, also known as the Hieros Gamos. This is a ritualized union of opposites, often represented by the coming together of the divine twins. The sacred marriage is not limited to heterosexual relationships, but can be understood as the mystical union of any complementary forces, whether within the self, between individuals, or between the practitioner and the divine. The Feri tradition views sexual energy as a potent source of spiritual power, capable of awakening the practitioner's latent abilities and facilitating direct communion with the divine. This energy is often harnessed through rituals, meditations, and ecstatic practices designed to open the practitioner to deeper levels of consciousness, and spiritual insight. Sexuality in Feri is thus seen as sacred and is approached with reverence and mindfulness, emphasizing the importance of consent, respect, and the intentional use of sexual energy for spiritual growth. Ancestral reverence plays a significant role in the Feri tradition, reflecting the belief that the spirits of the ancestors continue to influence the lives of the living. Feri practitioners honor their ancestors not only as biological forebears, but also as spiritual guides and protectors who can offer wisdom, support, and healing. The ancestors are seen as an integral part of the practitioner's spiritual lineage, connecting them to the broader currents of tradition and heritage. The concept of blood mysteries is closely tied to ancestral reverence in Feri. Blood mysteries refer to the deep, often hidden knowledge passed down through the generations, encoded in the blood and DNA of the practitioner. This knowledge is not merely intellectual, but is felt and experienced on a visceral level, often revealed through dreams, intuition, or direct communion with the ancestors. In Feri, rituals honoring the ancestors are common, particularly during certain times of the year when the veil between the worlds is considered to be thinner, such as Samhain or the Feri equivalent, the Feast of the Dead. These rituals may involve offerings, prayers, and the lighting of candles, as well as meditative practices designed to connect with the ancestral spirits. The goal is not only to honor the ancestors, but also to seek their guidance and support in navigating the challenges of life and the spiritual path. One of the most unique and complex aspects of the Feri tradition is its teachings on the three souls, or the threefold nature of the human being. This concept reflects the belief that each person possesses three distinct yet interconnected aspects of the soul, each with its own function and role in the spiritual life. Firstly, we have the fetch, also known as the younger self or animal soul. This is the instinctual, primal part of the human being. It is responsible for the body's autonomic functions, instincts, and desires. In Feri, the fetch is seen as the bridge between the conscious mind and the deeper spiritual realities, capable of direct communication with spirits and deities. The fetch is also associated with the subconscious mind and is often accessed through dreams, trance, and other altered states of consciousness. Next we have the middle soul, or the talker, also called the conscious self, represents the rational thinking aspect of the soul. It is the part of the self that engages with the world through language, logic, and intellect. The talker is responsible for decision making and the day-to-day management of life. In Feri, the talker must be in alignment with both the fetch and the God self to achieve spiritual harmony and effectiveness in magic. So then we have the last part, the higher soul, or the God self, also known as the holy guardian angel or divine self, and I believe also the holy daimon. It's sometimes referred to as. This is the highest aspect of the soul, representing the individual's connection to the divine source. The God Self is the seat of spiritual wisdom and higher consciousness, guiding the practitioner towards their true purpose and destiny. In Feri, aligning with the God Self is seen as essential for spiritual growth and the successful practice of magic. Spiritual alignment in Feri involves bringing these three souls into harmony with each other. This is often achieved through rituals, meditations, and practices designed to integrate the different aspects of the self, allowing the practitioner to act as a unified whole. When the three souls are aligned, the practitioner is believed to be in a state of spiritual power, capable of manifesting their desires and achieving their spiritual goals. Within the Feri tradition, rituals and magic serve as the primary means by which practitioners engage with the divine, the spirits, and the natural world. Feri rituals are often highly personalized and can vary widely from practitioner to practitioner, reflecting the tradition's emphasis on individual experience and creativity. Regarding the ritual structures, while there is no single standardized ritual structure in Feri, many rituals involve the creation of sacred space, often by casting a circle or invoking the elements and deities. The use of ritual tools, such as the athame or ritual knife, chalice, and wand, is common, although these tools may be used in ways that are unique to Feri. Rituals may include chanting, singing, drumming, and dancing, all designed to raise energy and facilitate altered states of consciousness. Magic in Feri is understood as the art of creating change in accordance with will, often through the manipulation of energy, symbols, and natural forces. Feri magic is deeply rooted in the practitioner's personal power and connection to the divine, with an emphasis on ecstatic and spontaneous practices. Spellwork, divination, and spirit communication are all common aspects of Feri magic, and practitioners are encouraged to develop their own magical techniques and approaches. The tools and symbols used in Feri rituals are often charged with deep personal and spiritual significance. The pentacle, representing the five elements, earth, air, fire, water, and spirit, is a common symbol in Feri, as is the hexagram, which represents the union of opposites. Other important symbols include the Black Heart of Innocence, the Peacock Angel, and the sigils associated with various deities and spirits. These symbols are not merely decorative, but are seen as gateways to deeper spiritual realities, capable of unlocking hidden powers and insights. The Kala rite is one of the most important and unique rituals within the Feri tradition. And this is a purification and alignment practice designed to cleanse the practitioner's energy body and bring the three souls into harmony. The Kala rite often involves the use of water, chanting, and visualization, with the goal of releasing negative energies and aligning the practitioner with their divine purpose. The ritual is considered a cornerstone of Feri practice, essential for maintaining spiritual health and balance. In Feri cosmology, the concept of the multiverse is central to understanding the nature of reality. Unlike a singular universe with a linear progression of time and space, the multiverse in Feri encompasses multiple planes of existence, each with its own distinct characteristics and laws. These planes are not separate from each other, but are interconnected, existing in a dynamic web of relationships that influence and shape each other. The multiverse is often described as a series of concentric circles or layers, with the physical world occupying the one layer and the various spiritual realms existing beyond it. These realms include the otherworld, the Feri realm, the ancestral plane, and the higher spiritual dimensions where the gods and higher beings reside. Each of these realms is accessible through specific rituals, meditations, and magical practices, allowing Feri practitioners to travel between worlds and interact with the beings that inhabit them. The idea of the multiverse also supports the Feri belief of the existence of parallel realities, where different versions of events, beings, and outcomes coexist. This belief has profound implications for the practice of magic, as it suggests that through focused intent and ritual, practitioners can shift their consciousness and influence which version of reality they experience. In the Feri tradition, the gods, spirits, and ancestors play a central role in the cosmology and are considered active participants in the ongoing creation and evolution of the multiverse. The gods in Feri are seen as both immanent and transcendent, meaning they are present in the world around us while also existing beyond it. They are not distant, unreachable beings, but are accessible through ritual prayer and direct communion. The fairy gods are often depicted as archetypal forces representing various aspects of life, nature, and the cosmos. They are both personal and impersonal, embodying qualities such as love, wisdom, power, and transformation. The relationship between practitioners and the gods is one of partnership and mutual respect, with the gods often acting as guides, protectors, and sources of inspiration. Spirits, including nature spirits, fairy beings, and other entities, are also integral to fairy cosmology. These spirits are seen as living, sentient beings that inhabit the natural world and the various realms of the multiverse. They are not mere symbols, but are considered real entities with their own personalities, desires, and powers. In Feri, interacting with these spirits is a common practice, whether through offerings, rituals, or meditative journeys. The spirits can provide guidance, protection, and assistance in magical workings, and forming a strong relationship with them is considered essential for spiritual growth. Ancestors hold a place of great honor in fairy cosmology, as they are believed to have continued influence on the lives of the living. The ancestral plane is one of the key realms within the multiverse, where the spirits of the departed reside. Fairy practitioners often seek the wisdom and support of their ancestors, recognizing them as guardians of tradition and carriers of deep ancestral knowledge. The connection with ancestors is maintained through rituals, offerings, and the cultivation of a living relationship with the ancestral spirits. Nature is revered in the Feri tradition as a manifestation of the divine, with the elements of earth, air, fire, water, and spirit forming the foundation of the physical and spiritual worlds. Each element is associated with specific qualities, powers, and deities, and is honored as a vital force in the creation and sustenance of life. Earth represents stability, grounding, and the material world. It is associated with the body, the physical plane, and the nurturing aspects of the divine. In Feri, the earth is often personified as a goddess, symbolizing fertility, abundance, and the sacredness of the natural world. Air represents intellect, communication, and the breath of life. It is associated with the mind, inspiration, and the movement of energy. Air is seen as a bridge between the physical and spiritual realms, carrying thoughts, prayers, and magical intent. Fire represents transformation, passion, and the creative force. It is associated with will, desire, and the dynamic energy of change. Fire is a powerful element in Feri, often used in rituals to ignite the practitioner's inner power and to bring about spiritual and material transformation. Water represents emotion, intuition, and the flow of life. It is associated with the heart, the unconscious, and the cycles of change. Water is revered for its ability to cleanse, heal, and connect the practitioner with the deeper currents of the soul and the divine. Spirit represents the quintessence, the unifying force that connects all things. It is associated with the divine spark within each being, the soul, and the ultimate source of all creation. In Feri, spirit is both the beginning and the end, the Alpha and the Omega, and is present in all rituals, practices, and the very fabric of reality. The elements are not just abstract concepts, but are experienced as living forces that permeate every aspect of existence. Feri practitioners engage with the elements through rituals, meditations, and daily practices, seeking to align themselves with these primal energies and to harmonize their own inner elements with the greater forces of nature. The Feri tradition offers a unique perspective on time and space, viewing them not as linear or fixed, but as fluid and interconnected. Time in Feri is often understood as cyclical, rather than linear, reflecting the natural rhythms of the seasons, the phases of the moon, and the cycles of birth, death, and rebirth. This cyclical understanding of time is reflected in the rituals and festivals of the Feri tradition, which align with the natural cycles and are used to mark significant transitions in the practitioner's life and spiritual journey. Space, like time, is also seen as fluid and interconnected. The boundaries between the physical and spiritual worlds are permeable, and through ritual magic, practitioners can move between these worlds, accessing different planes of reality. The concept of sacred space is important in Feri, where specific locations, whether natural or constructed, are recognized as places where the divine is particularly present. These spaces are often used for rituals, meditation, and communion with the spirits and deities. The interconnectedness of all things is a fundamental belief in Feri cosmology. The multiverse, with its myriad realms and beings, is seen as a vast interconnected web of life, where every action, thought, and intention has an impact on the whole. This belief underlies the practice of magic in Feri, where practitioners seek to influence the web of reality through their will and intent, recognizing that they are both a part of the whole and a co-creator of reality. The Feri tradition teaches that understanding and working with the interconnectedness of all things is key to spiritual growth and the effective practice of magic. This involves not only recognizing the relationships between different beings, forces, and realms, but also cultivating a deep sense of responsibility for one's actions and their impact on the greater web of life. In the Feri tradition, ecstasy is not merely a heightened emotional state, but a profound spiritual experience that transcends ordinary consciousness and allows the practitioner to connect directly with the divine. Ecstasy is seen as a gateway to the other world, where the boundaries between the self and the divine dissolve, enabling a deep, transformative encounter with the gods, spirits, and the primal forces of the universe. Ecstasy in Feri can be experienced in various forms, including intense emotions, visions, altered states of consciousness, and even physical sensations. You notice I can't say consciousness today properly. So these experiences are often spontaneous, arising during ritual, meditation, or moments of deep spiritual insight. However, they can also be intentionally cultivated through specific practices designed to induce ecstatic states. Feri practitioners view ecstasy as a sacred and transformative experience, one that can lead to profound personal growth and spiritual awakening. The experience of ecstasy is often described as a merging with the divine, where the practitioner feels a deep sense of unity with the cosmos and a direct connection to the divine source. This state of union is sometimes referred to as divine possession or inspired frenzy, where the practitioner becomes a vessel for the divine energy, receiving guidance, wisdom, and power. When it comes to these ecstatic states, there are various practices that are employed to induce these transformative experiences. These practices are diverse and can be adapted to suit the individual needs and preferences of the practitioner. Some of the most common practices would include, firstly, we've got trance and meditation. These are key techniques used to quiet the mind, open the heart, and create a receptive state for ecstatic experiences. Feri practitioners often use rhythmic breathing, visualization, and chanting to enter a trance state where they can access deeper levels of consciousness and connect with the divine. Trance can also be induced through drumming, dancing, or other forms of rhythmic movement, which help to shift the practitioner's awareness and open them to ecstatic experiences. Chanting and singing is another tool, which is a very powerful tool for raising energy and invoking the presence of the divine. Feri chants are often simple, repetitive, and rhythmic, designed to create a meditative state that can lead to ecstasy. The use of voice in ritual is seen as a direct expression of the divine within the practitioner, allowing them to channel divine energy and open themselves to ecstatic states. Dance and movement is also integral to the ecstatic practices of Feri, as they engage the body in the process of spiritual awakening. Dancing is often used in rituals to raise energy, invoke the gods, and facilitate ecstatic experiences. The physicality of dance helps to ground the practitioner in their body while simultaneously opening them to the flow of divine energy. This combination of physical and spiritual engagement is seen as a powerful way to induce ecstasy and connect with the divine. Breathwork is another important practice in Feri, used to alter consciousness and induce ecstatic states. Techniques such as rapid breathing, breath retention, and controlled exhalation are employed to shift the practitioner's awareness and open them to mystical experiences. Breathwork is often combined with visualization or chanting to enhance its effectiveness, helping the practitioner to move beyond ordinary consciousness and into a state of divine communion. And as mentioned earlier, sexual mysticism is a key aspect in the Feri tradition, and it plays a significant role in the cultivation of ecstatic states. The intentional use of sexual energy in ritual and meditation can lead to powerful ecstatic experiences where the practitioner feels a deep sense of union with the divine. This practice, known as sacred sexuality, is approached with reverence and mindfulness, recognizing the transformative potential of sexual energy in the spiritual journey. Mysticism in the Feri tradition is characterized by the direct personal experience of the divine, often facilitated by the states of ecstasy that we just mentioned. Unlike traditions that rely on intermediaries or prescribed rituals to access the divine, Feri places a strong emphasis on the individual's ability to connect with the divine through their own inner experience. Mystical experiences in Feri can take many forms, including visions, dreams, direct communication with gods or spirits, and profound insights into the nature of reality. These experiences are seen as gifts from the divine, offering the practitioner guidance, wisdom, and a deeper understanding of their spiritual path. Mysticism in Feri is not limited to extraordinary experiences, but is also seen as the everyday moments of connection with nature, the elements, and the spiritual world. One of the hallmarks of Feri mysticism is its emphasis on the black heart of innocence, a concept that refers to the practitioner's innate primal connection to the divine. This idea suggests that each person carries within them a direct link to the divine source, untainted by societal conditioning or intellectual concepts. The goal of Feri mysticism is to reconnect with this original state of innocence where the practitioner can experience the divine in its purest form. The mystical path in Feri is often described as a journey of descent and ascent, where the practitioner delves deep into the unconscious, the shadow self, and the hidden aspects of the soul to emerge with a greater understanding of the divine. This process is seen as a form of alchemical transformation, where the practitioner undergoes a series of inner changes that lead to spiritual enlightenment and the realization of their true divine nature. The experiences of ecstasy and mysticism in the Feri tradition are not ends in themselves, but are seen as a catalyst for a profound personal and spiritual transformation. Through these experiences, practitioners can break free from the limitations of ordinary consciousness, access deeper levels of wisdom, and realign themselves with the divine purpose of their soul. Ecstasy and mysticism in Feri are often accompanied by intense emotional, psychological, and spiritual changes, which can lead to a greater sense of clarity, purpose, and empowerment. These experiences are seen as opportunities for healing, growth, and the realization of the practitioner's full potential as a divine being. The transformative power of ecstasy and mysticism is also reflected in the Feri approach to magic, where these states are used to fuel and empower magical workings. When the practitioner enters an ecstatic or mystical state, they can tap into a deeper source of energy and intent, making their magic more potent and effective. This is particularly important in Feri, where magic is seen as a way to align with the natural and divine forces of the universe and to co-create reality in harmony with those forces. While ecstasy and mysticism are highly valued in Feri tradition, they also come with certain challenges and risks. The intensity of these experiences can sometimes be overwhelming, leading to emotional or psychological disturbances if not properly integrated. Practitioners are encouraged to approach these practices with caution, mindfulness, and a strong sense of grounding. One of the key challenges is the potential for spiritual bypassing, where practitioners use ecstatic or mystical experiences to avoid dealing with deeper emotional or psychological issues. Feri emphasizes the importance of shadow work and self-integration, recognizing that true spiritual growth requires facing and healing all aspects of the self, not just the exalted or mystical states. There is also the risk of becoming overly attached to ecstatic or mystical experiences, seeking them out for their own sake rather than for the spiritual insights they can provide. In Feri, practitioners are taught to view these experiences as tools for spiritual growth, not as the ultimate goal. The focus is on the wisdom and transformation that comes from these experiences rather than the experiences themselves. Finally, the powerful energies encountered during ecstatic and mystical practices can sometimes be challenging to manage. Practitioners are encouraged to develop strong grounding techniques and to work within the framework of Feri tradition, which provides guidance and protection for those engaging in these practices. Working with experienced teachers or mentors is also recommended, particularly for those new to these practices. Now, at the heart of Feri ethics is the principle of personal responsibility and autonomy. Practitioners of the Feri tradition are encouraged to take full responsibility for their actions, thoughts, and spiritual growth. This includes being aware of the impact one's actions have on others and the world at large, as well as understanding the consequences of one's magical and spiritual practices. Personal responsibility in Feri is closely tied to the concept of sovereignty, the idea that each individual is a sovereign being with the right and responsibility to govern their own life. This sovereignty is not just about personal freedom, but also about making choices that are in alignment with one's true will and greater good. Feri practitioners are encouraged to develop a strong sense of self-awareness and to make decisions that reflect their deepest values and spiritual understanding. Autonomy in the Feri tradition also extends to the spiritual path itself. Unlike traditions that have rigid dogmas or centralized authorities, Feri allows for a great deal of individual exploration and interpretation. Practitioners are encouraged to seek their own understanding of the divine, to experiment with different practices, and to trust their inner guidance. This autonomy fosters a deeper sense of personal empowerment and encourages practitioners to take an active role in their spiritual journey. The law of reciprocity, often summarized as what you send out returns to you, is a fundamental ethical principle in the Feri tradition. This principle is not just about the literal return of actions, but also about the energetic and spiritual consequences of one's deeds. The law of reciprocity emphasizes that all actions, thoughts, and intentions have an impact on the web of life, and that this impact will eventually return to the individual in some form. In Feri, the law of reciprocity is understood as a natural law, reflecting the interconnectedness of all things. It is not seen as a punitive force, but as a reminder that every action creates ripples in the fabric of reality. Practitioners are encouraged to be mindful of their actions and to strive to create positive, life-affirming ripples through their choices. This principle also underpins the Feri approach to magic. When casting spells or engaging in other magical practices, Feri practitioners are mindful of the law of reciprocity and consider the potential consequences of their actions. The understanding that energy sent out into the world will return encourages practitioners to act with integrity, compassion, and wisdom. We can also include compassion and justice here. Compassion is understood as a deep, empathetic connection to all living beings and a willingness to act in ways that alleviate suffering and promote well-being. Justice, in the Feri sense, is about fairness, balance, and the restoration of harmony in the world. Compassion in Feri extends beyond human relationships to include animals, plants, spirits, and the earth itself. Practitioners are encouraged to cultivate a compassionate heart, to be kind and understand their interactions, and to seek ways to contribute positively to the world. This compassion is not passive but active, often requiring practitioners to take a stand against injustice and to work towards healing and balance. Justice in Feri is seen as a natural extension of the law of reciprocity. When harmony is disrupted, whether through personal actions, societal imbalances, or environmental degradation, there is an ethical imperative to restore balance. This might involve direct action, such as standing up against oppression or working to protect the environment, or it could involve spiritual practices such as rituals for healing or protection. In Feri, justice is not about punishment or retribution, but about restoring balance and harmony. Practitioners are encouraged to approach situations of injustice with both strength and compassion, seeking solutions that honor the dignity of all beings involved. We also have integrity and the authenticity, where the alignment of one's actions with one's true self and spiritual values is considered essential for spiritual growth. Integrity in Feri is about being true to oneself, living in accordance with one's deepest values, and acting in ways that reflect one's spiritual beliefs. Authenticity involves being honest with oneself and others, embracing one's true nature, and expressing oneself without fear of judgment or rejection. In a spiritual context, authenticity is about being honest in your spiritual practice, not just following rituals or beliefs because they are prescribed, but because they resonate deeply with your soul. Practitioners of the Feri tradition are encouraged to cultivate self-awareness and to live in a way that reflects their inner truth. This includes being honest with one's strengths and weaknesses, embracing your shadow, and striving to live in a way that is congruent with your spiritual values. Integrity is also about honoring one's commitments, whether to yourself, others, or the divine, and acting in a way that builds trust and respect in all relationships. The Feri tradition acknowledges that power, whether magical, spiritual, or personal, comes with great responsibility. The ethical use of power is a central concern in Feri, where practitioners are taught to wield their power with wisdom, compassion, and respect for the free will of others. The Feri tradition views power as neither good nor evil, but as a neutral force that can be used for various purposes. However, the intention behind the use of power is what determines its ethical standing. Practitioners are encouraged to examine their motivations for using power and to ensure that their actions are in alignment with their ethical principles. In magical practice, the ethics of power are particularly important. Feri practitioners are taught to be mindful of the potential impact of their magic on others and to avoid actions that could cause harm or violate the free will of another. The principle of do what you will, but harm none is often invoked, though with an understanding that the definition of harm can be complex and situation dependent. The responsible use of power also involves understanding one's own limitations and being willing to seek guidance when necessary. Practitioners are encouraged to develop their power with humility and to use it in service to the greater good rather than for selfish or destructive purposes. As a tradition rooted in both ancient wisdom and contemporary practice, the Feri tradition faces unique ethical challenges in the modern world. Practitioners must navigate the complexities of living in a society that often values materialism, competition, and individualism, with values that can sometimes be at odds with the ethical principles of Feri. One of the key ethical challenges in modern practices is maintaining a balance between personal autonomy and social responsibility. Feri practitioners are encouraged to be true to themselves and to follow their own spiritual path, but they are also reminded of their interconnectedness with others and the importance of contributing positively to the world. This balance can be difficult to achieve, particularly in a world that often prioritizes personal success over collective well-being. Another challenge is the ethical use of technology and social media, which can both empower and complicate modern spiritual practices. While these tools can be used to spread knowledge, build community, and share spiritual insights, they can also contribute to superficiality, disconnection, and the commodification of spiritual teachings. Feri practitioners are encouraged to use technology mindfully, ensuring that their online presence reflects their ethical values and contributes to the greater good. Finally, the modern Feri practitioner must navigate issues of cultural appropriation and respect for diverse spiritual traditions. As the Feri tradition has grown and evolved, it has sometimes been influenced by other spiritual paths. Practitioners are encouraged to approach these influences with respect, acknowledging their origins and ensuring that they are integrated into Feri practice in a way that honors their cultural and spiritual significance. The Feri tradition has undergone significant evolution since its emergence in the mid-20th century. Originally taught in small, close-knit groups, Feri has expanded to include a diverse array of practitioners across the globe, each bringing their unique perspectives and experiences to the tradition. One of the most notable aspects of Feri's evolution is its move from a primarily oral tradition to one that is increasingly accessible through written materials, online communities, and public workshops. This shift has allowed for greater dissemination of Feri teachings, but has also led to debates within the community about the preservation of the tradition's integrity and the potential dilution of its practices. As Feri has evolved, it has also become more inclusive, welcoming practitioners from diverse backgrounds and identities. This inclusivity reflects the tradition's emphasis on personal sovereignty and the belief that each individual has their unique path to the divine. The tradition's adaptability has allowed it to resonate with a wide range of people, from those seeking a deeply personal, mystical experience to those interested in the practical application of magic and energy work. The modern fairy community is characterized by a blend of continuity and change. For some practitioners, adhering closely to the teachings of the early fairy teachers like Victor and Cora Anderson, while others explore new interpretations and practices. This diversity within the tradition is both a strength and a challenge, as it fosters creativity and growth, while also raising questions about what constitutes the core of fairy practice. The fairy tradition has had a significant impact on contemporary paganism and witchcraft, contributing to the broader understanding and practice of these spiritual paths. Fairy's emphasis on personal gnosis, direct experience of the divine, and the integration of magic and mysticism has influenced many practitioners and traditions within the pagan community. One of the key contributions of fairy to contemporary witchcraft is its approach to magic as an intrinsic part of spiritual practice rather than a separate or external tool. In fairy, magic is seen as a natural expression of the practitioner's connection to the divine and the energies of the cosmos. The holistic view of magic has resonated with many modern witches, who seek to integrate their magical and spiritual lives in a seamless and meaningful way. Fairy's influence is also evident in the growing interest in ecstatic and mystical practices within the broader pagan community. The tradition's focus on trance, ecstatic states, and direct communion with the divine has inspired many practitioners to explore these aspects of their spirituality, leading to a resurgence of interest in practices such as ecstatic dance, drumming, and chanting. Additionally, fairies' teachings on sexual mysticism and the sacredness of the body have contributed to the reclamation of sexuality as a vital aspect of spiritual practice within contemporary paganism. Fairies' approach to sexuality as a powerful and transformative force has helped to challenge and expand the boundaries of what is considered sacred in modern spiritual practice. The fairy tradition attracts a diverse range of practitioners, each drawn to the tradition for different reasons and with varying expectations and goals. The diversity is one of the strengths of fairy, as it allows for a rich tapestry of experiences, perspectives, and practices within the community. Practitioners of fairy come from a variety of backgrounds, including different religious traditions, cultural heritages, and life experiences. Some are drawn to fairy for its emphasis on personal sovereignty and autonomy, finding in it a path that allows them to explore their spirituality on their own terms. Others are attracted to the tradition's deep connection to the natural world and its emphasis on the integration of magic and mysticism. The fairy tradition also appeals to those who seek a more mystical or esoteric spiritual path, with its focus on direct experience of the divine and exploration of altered states of consciousness. For these practitioners, fairy offers a framework for exploring the mysteries of existence and the depths of the self. The diversity of practitioners within fairy tradition has led to a wide range of practices and interpretations, with some adherents focusing more on the magical and ritual aspects of the tradition, while others are more interested in its mystical and spiritual dimensions. This diversity is both a reflection of the tradition's adaptability and a challenge for those seeking to define what it means to be a fairy practitioner in the modern world. The fairy tradition exists within a broader context of spiritual and cultural movements, and its teachings and practices often intersect with those of other traditions. This intersectionality has led to a cross-pollination of ideas and practices, enriching the fairy tradition while also contributing to the broader spiritual landscape. One area of intersection is with the neo-pagan movement, which shares with fairy a reverence for nature an emphasis on personal experience, and a commitment to ecological and social justice. Many fairy practitioners are also involved in neo-pagan groups where they bring their unique perspectives and practices to the community. Feri also intersects with the feminist and LGBTQ plus movements, particularly in its teachings on sexual mysticism, gender fluidity, and the sacredness of all bodies. The tradition's embrace of diverse sexualities and its challenge to traditional gender roles resonate with those who seek a spiritual path that honors their identity and experience. Another significant intersection is with the broader movement of Western esotericism, particularly in the areas of magic, mysticism, and occultism. Feri's teachings on the use of power, the cultivation of ecstatic states, and the exploration of the shadow self align with the goals of many esoteric traditions, and Feri practitioners often engage with these broader currents of thought and practice. The intersection of Feri with other spiritual and cultural movements highlights the tradition's ability to adapt and evolve in response to the changing needs of its practitioners. It's also underscores the importance of maintaining the integrity of the tradition while being open to new influences and ideas. Looking to the future, the Feri tradition is likely to continue its evolution as it responds to the changing needs of its practitioners and broader spiritual landscape. As the tradition grows, there will be ongoing opportunities to explore new interpretations of its teachings, to develop new practices, and to engage with other spiritual and cultural movements. One possible direction for the future of Feri is the continued integration of technology and online platforms into the tradition. While this presents challenges, it also offers the opportunity to reach a global audience and to create new forms of community and practice. Online forums, virtual rituals, and digital resources can complement traditional in-person gatherings and help to build a more connected and accessible Feri community. I know from my own perspective and point of view, this would be fantastic for myself, well, specifically in my earlier years anyway, while I was living in South Africa. It would have been amazing. So the future of Feri tradition will likely involve a continued exploration of the balance between tradition and innovation, let's hope. As new generations of practitioners come to the tradition, they will bring their own perspectives, needs, and insights, which will shape the evolution of Feri in ways that honor its past while creating new possibilities for the future. All right, so let's have a look at some references. I've got some books and links to websites and articles, blog posts, but as always, I'll put the links, all the links into the description. And I'll also link to, I created a category on my Amazon storefront. So there will be some books in there. You're not going to find all of the books on Amazon. A lot of the books, especially from the Andersons, are out of print. So, you're not going to find those particularly, but, there's some really good, well, especially one particular contemporary author, which I'll mention just now. But I'm going to, if you can find them, there's a lot of books by the Andersons. So I'm just going to list some authors themselves. So we've got obviously Victor H. Anderson, who's creator of the Feri tradition, alongside his wife Cora Anderson. Loads and loads and loads of books if you can get hold of them. Another author is Starhawk, who was trained with Victor Anderson, but probably the most accessible and contemporary author, who is an initiate of Feri, was Storm Fairy-Wolf, or is Storm Fairy-Wolf. Just to name some of the books that he's written and come out with, and they are fantastic books, they really are. There's Betwixt and Between, which is exploring the Feri tradition of witchcraft. There's also Forbidden Mysteries of Fairy Witchcraft, and also The Stars Within the Earth. Have a look at Storm Fairy Wolf's books and blogs. Loads and loads and loads of blog posts. Very prolific writer. There are also some authors, and I haven't put them in this specific category. They are, I'd say they're more connected with the fairy tradition as opposed to the fairy tradition. Obviously the fairy or the fae play an important role within the fairy tradition itself. But when it comes to the fairy, as in the fae tradition, have a look at authors such as Orion Foxwood and also R.J. Stewart. If I remember correctly, Orion Foxwood was a student of R.J. Stewart, but that's very much focused on fairy tradition itself. Fairy, fae. It's difficult to say the fairy and the fairy. Different without spelling it out. Alright, so that brings me to the end. Oh, the other online resources, as I said, they are the actual websites and blog posts. They are listed in the description below, but there's a link to Anderson Fairy website and the Fairy Tradition website. And there's a couple articles, one on pagan theologies and the other one on Patheos websites. Alright, but as I said, those links are in the description below, and the link to the category on Amazon storefront is at the top. Alright, so hope you enjoyed that. Thanks for watching. Was a bit of a longer one today. I wanted to get as much information as I could about this particular path, and I think I'm going to do a bit more in the future with the path series in particular. Try and get a bit more information about the paths I'm talking about, rather than just a pure introduction. I've been doing in the past. Anyway, I will see you next time. Thanks for watching. Cheers for now. Bye bye.